Just to let you know, coming up later in the show, Chris Anderson from the Harrod Center at the College of Southern Idaho will be joining us, telling us a little bit about what's coming up at the museum, the planetarium, and I also told him to be prepared to talk about the new Star Trek series, which is coming out, I think, in just a matter of weeks. Caught me completely by surprise when I saw something online about it the other day. 7 minutes after 8 o'clock. Let me get that straight. Should we go back and play that big voice guy all over again and have him reintroduce the show? And 36 on our way to a high today of, I don't know, not much warmer. But it will be warmer on Sunday, and we are looking forward to that. We're just in somewhat of a cool stretch here for a while, and it probably will last to, I don't know, April or so. But anyway, thank you for joining me today on the program, and we've got a bit more coming up. There was a fellow being prosecuted at the Air Force Base at Minot, North Dakota, because he apparently hit on 3 women in an office there. He could spend 135 years. Well, he won't live that long. But he could face 135 years in sentencing for the crime of hitting on these 3 women, and contrast that with Bo Bergdahl. Yeah, think about that for a moment, and which one probably is going to walk away scot-free. But in the meantime, I wanted to really get to a story today that's been bubbling the last few days. Ever since Ben Carson ended up, at least in some polls, as the leading Republican at the moment, du jour, for his party's nomination for president, and Republicans apparently flocking to messages from people like Carson and Donald Trump because they happen to be straight talkers, and media still hasn't been able to figure that one out. But ever since Carson had that rise, we've had media that's been probing him in many places you wouldn't like to be probed. If you were Ben Carson, you wouldn't be happy about all of this. And he's a medical professional. I got into a bit of a snit the other day with a columnist at the Washington Post. This fellow and I have been emailing back and forth for many, many years. His name is Colbert King. He's a flaming lefty. And, of course, he's attacking, stepped up his personal attacks on Ben Carson and making comparisons to some of the people who were running in 2012. You may remember we had a candidate running in 2012, and he had some experience as a Coca-Cola executive. He'd been in business for many, many years. And he had a talk show for a while. I think he still does in Atlanta, Georgia. Herman Cain. And right in the middle of the campaign, suddenly all of these women were trotted out who said, Herman Cain tried to grope me. And there was this huge firestorm. Cain at the time was very popular among voters, and the media got involved, and there was a huge drumbeat on all of this. But even people who knew Herman Cain said, this is a real stretch. You know, you think you know somebody is always the line, but they said, no, not Herman Cain. Not Herman Cain whatsoever. Cain ended up, because of the pressure of it all, I guess, and plus what his family was going through, he withdrew from the race, and immediately all of his accusers disappeared. And media stopped talking about it. So I told this guy, Colbert King, the other day, I said, what happened? I mean, you people set him up. What did you do? And I really reamed him out for criticizing Ben Carson as somewhat of an Uncle Tom. And I guess Mr. King, whose ancestry is African, is not happy with me. Says he's going to use some of my email in a future column. I guess he'll try to portray me as racist. All I simply said was he may have gotten his job through affirmative action. And hey, it is possible. When I worked in news media I was running newsrooms, it was my job to do all of the hiring, and I was often told, well, this is the Asian position, this is the black position, this is the Latino position. So I know a little bit about how that works on the inside. But if he wants to write about me in his nationally syndicated column, go right ahead. I'm more than willing to stand back and take the punches and argue with this guy. Carson, meanwhile, was doing an interview with Univision. I don't know why, but he was doing an interview with Jorge Ramos at Univision. That guy's dangerous, of course. Doesn't speak very good English as well. You really have to strain to understand his questioning. And maybe any candidate who gets criticized after an interview with Ramos can simply say, I just had no idea what the man was talking about. It was all gibberish to me. It was like Greek to me. I didn't understand a word of it. They were talking about transgender rights. Because, of course, with $20 trillion unofficially and $1 trillion unofficially in debt in this country, transgender rights are the most important thing we have to focus on going into election year 2016, don't we? Well, Carson's answer has really inflamed those folks over in the cross-dressing community who now say, the boys who think they're girls and the girls who think they're boys, they now say that Mr. Carson is proposing segregation. I want you to take a little bit, a moment anyway, at least to listen to Carson's answer to the question and see if that's what you get out of it.
In Houston, recently they rejected a measure that would have banned discrimination against the LGBT community. Dr. Carson, should transgender men and women use any public bathroom they choose?
How about we have a transgender bathroom?
Would that be your solution, your proposal?
Sure. Absolutely. There's absolutely
how would that work?
It is not fair for them to make everybody else uncomfortable. It's one of the things that I don't particularly like about the movement. I think everybody has equal rights, but I'm not sure that anybody should have extra rights. Extra rights when it comes to redefining everything for everybody else and imposing your view on everybody else. When, the way that this country was designed, it was live and let live.
How dare he? How dare he take a notion like that? How dare he have a notion like that? How dare he speak about it publicly? I was reading a column today in The Atlantic, which used to be a fairly middle-of-the-road publication when I was a subscriber about 20 years ago. Now a very flaming leftist magazine, but a writer by the name of Molly Ball writing there today said that apparently because of what happened in Ohio on the dope vote and what happened in Houston on the bathroom vote and what happened on the gun vote in Virginia, that maybe liberals haven't caught on, but the American people aren't liberals for the most part. And for the most part, the American people, unless a court orders it, don't go along with all of these changes. But they're hammering away at Ben Carson, trying to destroy him now because he could be, like Herman Cain was, a powerful force, because he's a person of color that just breaks down the narrative of the left in this country. And they're fuming about the fact that right now he's leading in some polls. They're calling him an idiot. The guy's a neurosurgeon, a pediatric neurosurgeon. He separated conjoined twins. What in blazes are they talking about? People in media, all they can do is get soused on it, every night after they get out of work and then work the next day hammering away at typewriters. Well, I should say keyboards today, while they have these rocking hangovers. I'm sorry, but there's nothing in media that says that they have any ability to build rockets and send them to the moon or cure cancer, and especially separate conjoined twins. And yet, here we go again. 8:14, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com, up to 37. Meanwhile, appearing on Fox News Channel's Kelly File last night, Carson was asked, CNN is out to try to do him in. CNN is saying that his childhood story, that of course he's written about this, that his whole memory of his childhood is simply wrong. And Carson says, no, the Clinton News Network, that happens to be wrong.
Dr. Carson, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I know that you said that this feels like a witch hunt, what's happening over at CNN, but let me ask you flat out whether you stand by the claim that you, as a young man, as a 14-year-old boy, attempted to stab another boy and attacked your mother with a hammer.
Those claims are absolutely true. I am 100% sure that they are true. And this is simply an attempt to smear and to deflect the argument to something else, something that we've seen many, many times before. And I never use the true names of people in books, to protect the innocent. That's something that people have done for decades, for centuries. That's something that's commonly done. The person that I tried to stab, I talked to today, said would they want to be revealed. They were not anxious to be revealed. And it was a close relative of mine. And I didn't want to put their lives under the spotlight. This is something that I've decided to do. None of those people decided that they wanted to do this, and the media is ruthless.
No kidding. No kidding. Then they have an agenda. When a black man runs and he's a liberal like Barack Obama, they all want to have his babies. When a black man runs and he's independent and has a strong will and believes in small government and at least smaller government in Ben Carson's case, oh, goodness gracious, we have to get this guy out of the way. We have a caller with us. This is always dangerous, of course, to put some of these amateurs on the air, but some people actually are pretty good. News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com, and you're on the air.
You know, Bill, I think the biggest thing that we're starting to see with the left dropping is the old story of the little boy that cried. You know, it only takes so many times, and after a while, you've got to open your eyes and go, man, they keep crying about stuff, and it never happens, or it's wrong, or something else, and they wonder why all this is going on. You know, at a certain point, we're going to get to the point that we don't even bow down to their name calling. And when that happens, they're done because their tactics are over.
Whenever I hear them talk about media will say, well, there's a lack of trust in churches in this country, a lack of trust in government in this country. All of this is true. But if we were to ask people their opinions on the mainstream media, you would see a great lack of trust there as well. That's one they don't like to talk about.
Yeah, because you know, just like the debate, you know, when they were hammered on that. It's true. They do what they think is best for them. If reporters would be reporters and report on the truth and let us decide which way we'd want to go, then that's the way it should be. But when we're constantly spoon-fed their agenda to keep things moving in one direction, after a while you just kind of fall by the wayside. I sit there and listen to it and go, man, you know, I'm not fully educated, but this is baloney.
And I've got something I want to share with folks. Thank you for the call. This is Morning Joe, and the only Republican on that program, Joe Scarborough, talking about that debate last week.
All I am saying to you, and you can't do it, and nobody here can do it, name the single Republican that has hosted a Sunday show, that has been an anchor of a news network for the big three networks over the past 50 years. You cannot do it. So we Republicans, what I'm explaining
Tony
is,
Snow.
we're told to sit back. Tony Snow, did he host what, Fox News Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fox News Sunday.
I just said ABC, CBS, NBC.
Okay,
you can't do it, and nobody out there,
Joe,
no media critic can do it.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, okay, you don't sound like you agree with me.
I think you're uncomfortable with the truth.
No, I've said for my whole career, there's huge liberal media bias, not just in the examples you've given, but in less prominent
what's
people.
What's the argument?
But all I'm saying is find people who don't, the few people who don't fit in that category, and let objective journalists.
Because they're all Democrats.
No.
The people that run the Sunday shows are all Democrats.
Now, he's talking to Mark Halperin there, and Halperin says, yes, there is huge liberal media bias. But here's the thing. They recognize it, too. They're not doing anything to correct it. Oh, they talk about diversity. Well, we need someone in the office who's left-handed. We need a left-handed employee. Oh, we need a couple of more women. We need a couple of more Asians. We need a couple of more Latinos. We need a couple of more blacks. How about a few people who have a different ideological bent? Oh, well, that is a problem. However, but. We've got more coming up. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. The culture wars continue, and the liberals may be losing. Want to remind you, coming up on our program, next Wednesday morning between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, Dr. Jonathan Tripp scheduled to join us from Tripp Family Medicine. We do this every Wednesday. It's an opportunity for you, too, as well, to talk to a friendly medical professional. Give us a telephone call when he's in the studio at 736-0300 if you have a question. Topic for this coming week is concussions. And they can be, of course, you can get one playing sports, you can get one in a car accident, you can get one falling downstairs, any number of things. And we'll talk about best way to treat concussions. Of course, it's a big, big story in the sports world right now, just simply because of what's been happening in football and hockey and some of the other contact sports. Do want to remind you, Tripp Family Medicine is located in Twin Falls, directly across the street from the main post office. And remember, life's too short not to feel good. Political correctness was on the ballot in a number of places. See, this is why Carson has been successful. In fact, turns out even among independents. Democrats may have their own views of him, but he has been successful, at least among Republicans at the moment, and the same with Donald Trump, is because they've thrown political correctness to the wind. Two writers that I happened to see this morning talking about this, Molly Ball I mentioned from The Atlantic, saying that liberals have been under the assumption that everyone else believes what they believe, and unfortunately the results of and basically liberals have gotten most of the gains on the culture wars simply through the courts, which are dominated for the most part now by, especially at the federal level, by people who were appointed by Bill Clinton. And because these guys sit there for the rest of their lives, 20, 30 years down the road, they're still making decisions that may not necessarily reflect what we have across America, at least the views of the American people. Came across a couple of other points on this today as well. Over at the National Review, Kevin D. Williamson says, in Houston, which is a primarily Democrat city, only 25% of Houston is white. It is overwhelmingly Democrat. Yet these people turned around and rejected the bathroom bill the other day. Why? Because in the minority communities, they don't believe in that sort of thing. It's only the old liberal white people who run the party that try to cram this down everyone's throats. And that tells you that perhaps, despite all of their bragging that they have this coalition they're building that will wipe out the Republican Party and grumpy old white men like me forever, they may well be wrong. Daily Signal has this today. This I found interesting. Share with you a couple of stories from liberals who claim that the world is out to get them. Exaggerating and distorting the news while black. And this is from a writer by the name of Hans van Spakovsky. All right, he may have been in the back of the line when names are being handed out, but that's for another day. He writes, if you wonder about the bias and lack of objectivity and accuracy of reporters in the mainstream media, look no further than what they are learning at schools like the University of North Texas, where a woman named Dorothy Bland is the dean of the School of Journalism. She recently wrote an article in the Dallas Morning News about her supposed harassment by police officers for, quote, walking while black, unquote. That doesn't bear even a passing resemblance to what really happened. She apparently didn't know this. She took photographs of the police officers on her cell phone, posted them on her Facebook page, and said, these white police officers are being mean to me. And they're harassing me while I'm walking in my neighborhood because I live in an upscale neighborhood and I'm a black woman. And people all over the country were enraged, and they were saying, oh, we have to show those police that they can't do this and give them the what for. And unfortunately for her, she didn't know they had the dash cam camera on. And this is what was going on. These two cops driving around on patrol one morning, foggy morning, and they saw a pickup truck stop in the middle of the road. And as they came up, they realized that the truck driver had stopped because a woman was walking down the middle of the street, not on the sidewalks. And the truck driver threw up his arms like, what am I supposed to do? So they followed her for a while in the police car. And she apparently had no knowledge that she was being followed because she had earbuds and was listening to loud music and a hoodie on. So she couldn't see behind her. She wasn't walking against traffic. She was walking with traffic, and she was drifting from the side of the road to the center of the road back and forth, which became a traffic hazard. So she claimed that they turned on the sirens and flashing lights and that, that they jumped out of the car and harassed her and told her to get out of the road. And what actually happened was they did hit the lights to get her attention, but they didn't hit the siren. And then they got out and very politely said she'd be much safer if she happened to be walking on a sidewalk. And she took this to be harassment. And now she has gone after them, and she's written this column in the Dallas Morning News. Well, she's got egg on her face today, doesn't she? So for all of those, going back to Ferguson, Missouri, when, it was said that mean, nasty police officer gunned down that gentle giant, who, of course, had just roughed up a convenience store owner and stolen cigars and tried to take the police officer's gun. I'm sick to death of the lies coming out of the liberal community in this country in order to try and make people who are doing their jobs look bad. And somehow they feel they're going to get some sympathy. But if you make your argument, it's based on a lie, and then evidence comes out that is so clearly tells you it was based on a lie, how do you get away with that? And why isn't this woman being told by the school that she works for, you know what? Because if I did something like that on the air, they'd probably tell me, well, Bill, you've embarrassed the company. You've got to go. But she gets to keep her job. Why? Well, you answer that question on your own. 827, Bill Colley with you on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Oh, this one's even better. One of the leaders of the Apache Indian tribe. You want to talk a little bit about perhaps crossing a line? This is from Fox News, a reporter at Fox News by the name of Tom Graham.
The chairman of the San Carlos Apache tribe in Arizona says his costume last month was a poor choice. Many now blasting a Facebook post of Terry Rambler dressed as reggae singer Bob Marley, complete with what appears to be dark-faced makeup. The post has since been taken down, but anger is still simmering. Many see the getup as hypocritical for the Apache leader. He's been critical of the NFL's Washington Redskins. Rambler was in D.C. this week for a White House Tribal Nations conference, even signing a petition to ban the team's mascot, calling it racist. Tom Graham, Fox News.
So you're telling me he put on Al Jolson makeup on his face so he could dress as Bob Marley at Halloween. and yet the same guy says the Washington Redskins should be dropping their name. All right. Last week we had a college president in Kentucky who issued an apology because students complained when a picture surfaced at a Halloween party and he was wearing a sombrero. How dare he? As if wearing a sombrero somehow is going to hurt somebody's feelings or is making fun of someone. It's a hat, for crying out loud. And when I heard that piece about that Apache Indian leader, I thought to myself, well, if they feel that they can go around in blackface, then they wouldn't mind if I sat here every morning and we went, la, 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 la. Well, that's okay then, right? That wouldn't be offensive or hurt your feelings? For crying out loud, can everybody stop being worried about having their feelings hurt or being made sad or being offended by everything that happens? Get a tough hide and get a life and get on with your life. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. The New York Times had a debate in its newspaper with two people over a bathroom bill in Houston, Texas. And what they did is they had two transgender people argue about it. I guess that's how you get differing opinions. One says we should have transgender bathrooms and we shouldn't allow anyone to interfere with that. The other one says we should have transgender bathrooms but take into account other people may have some opposition. And that is called a healthy debate by the New York Times, the Bible of American liberalism and political correctness. Oh, I'm sorry, they call themselves progressives, which implies progress. But of course, I don't know that there's any progress involved in that. Would regressives be a better title? Hey, we've got more coming up. Chris Anderson from the Herritt Center joining us in the next hour of the program. Hope you can stick around for that.